by her students, Dr. Carol Dweck wrote a book with the intention of helping people to develop a growth mindset. The title of the book is Mindset: Changing the Way You Think to Fulfill Your True Potential. The word mindset is so widely used, but what do we understand when we use it in our everyday speech? Simply put, mindset is a set of beliefs we have about ourselves. Yep, it's that simple. However, it gets trickier when we come to realize that it is namely this set that makes us act the way we do. It is responsible for our abilities to face challenges or hide from them. Carol Dweck distinguishes between two mindsets: a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is the one keeping a person fixed in the beliefs they have without even questioning the validity of those beliefs. Rejecting them is a no-go, as such a person would feverishly believe that they were born with that mindset and nothing could be done about that. On the other hand, a person with a growth mindset would say that their beliefs and abilities are not carved in stone and would embrace every setback and consider it as a learning opportunity and not as a sign of failure. By the way, a growth mindset appears to be the number one element necessary for lifelong learning. While reading what one mindset or the other sounds like in people's heads, I could recognize myself in some of them. I like to believe that I have a growth mindset. Come on, I'm a self-proclaimed lifelong learner. But then there were cases when I recognized the squeaking voice of the fixed mindset in my head. And that was quite shocking to me. Am I a fraud? That was, a cognitive dissonance moment. Yet Carol Dweck calmed me down as she states that no one has a 100% growth or fixed mindset. We are more of a mixture of two, and it's which one has more control over us that counts. What a relief. I got my life back to normal. By showing what it's like inside the mindset, Carol Dweck raises our awareness so that we decide whether we need to change something or just leave it the way it is. From what I understood, the fixed mindset offers a lot of comfort as one would stay in their nook and believe that they weren't born with the necessary abilities, so what's the use trying? If they are only set to succeed and look for validation, then they won't leave their nook, as leaving it might mean getting hurt. They will do anything to feel smart in the short run. Moreover, they might even surround themselves with worshippers who'd make them even more fixated in their beliefs. As a result, no growth is happening. This is why it is crucial to always seek constructive criticism. When such people fail, they might end up identifying themselves as failures, and they are doomed. By the way, in my culture, there is an expression that goes like this: it's better to be the first in your native village than the last in the city. Such an expression will only contribute to fostering the fixed mindset. We won't consider the historical factors that led people to adopt such a view, but we can understand why some might still prefer the toxic comfort of the fixed mindset. Psychologically, it's difficult to admit shameful experiences. That's why people would go out of their way to prevent themselves from experiencing one, including sentencing themselves to life imprisonment in their nook. I can say that I was afraid of getting out of my nook, because when I did it, I failed. And that failure kept me in my nook for almost 5 years. I still don't know how, but I managed to push myself out of it. I'd like to draw the attention to what parents and educators might do in order to fix their kids in their nooks. Unfortunately, I wasn't told that my grades don't define my potential. This is what kids need to be told. At present, education seems to be more a means to an end, that is, the grade, and not the end in itself. In my country, do you know what is the question parents usually ask kids when they get home from school? What grade have you got? So what kind of mindset is this kid likely to develop? Carol Dweck makes an interesting point when she signals the drawbacks of your special culture. But then shouldn't we foster our self-esteem? If we don't respect ourselves, how can we expect others to respect us? Or how can we get the confidence that we can do it? However, I think Carol Dweck refers to the extreme side, which might be promoted at present when people start believing that they are special and end up thinking they are superior to others. This is self-esteem brought to extremism. This is toxic self-esteem. I believe that what we should do is to find the balance. We shall foster our self-esteem, admitting at the same time that we are idiots as well. I refer here to the video by the School of Life, How to Be More Confident. If you might slip into believing you are better than others, I would recommend watching this short video. I do know that failure can be a painful experience, but it's the self-talk I have that counts. I failed, but I'm not a failure. I'm still somebody even though I'm unsuccessful. The fact that I failed means that I should keep trying and learning on the way. If I allow the fixed mindset to take control over me, I'll give up and say, why waste my time if I have no ability to do it? By the way, this is a way of repairing one's self-esteem. And if I add to this, others fail worse than me, I'll be in the grip of the fixed mindset. I like a quote by John Whedon mentioned in the book. You aren't a failure until you start to blame. So whenever slipping into, it wasn't my fault, it's theirs, you are slipping into the fixed mindset. One key element of the growth mindset is determination. Why is it important? Because even people with growth mindset get disappointed, get depressed. Yet, unlike the people with the fixed mindset, they are determined to go through that challenging period. We are all born with a certain temperament. We can't do much about it. But it doesn't mean we can't develop the determination we need to get us through some challenging times. If I'm determined, I'll put on the effort to go on, even though I'm at my lowest ebb. Now guys, we all have come across these affirmations. We might even have shared a few on our social media walls. Success is about being your best self. Failure is just an opportunity to learn. Effort is key to success. Do you know why they might not work? Because the mindset is fixed. Our neocortex, the thinking machine, understands. But the beliefs determined by our emotions are embedded in our limbic system, our unconscious. They are difficult to shatter. I said difficult, not impossible. Once we manage to change our mindset, we won't need affirmations because we will be living those affirmations. We won't need reminders because we are those people. I liked this remark. The fixed mindset creates the feeling that you can really know the permanent truth about yourself. But this feeling is just a comforting illusion, shielding us from the negative emotions we might experience on our way to development. Our character is not fixed. What we experience, the context, the people we interact with, make a subtle change in who we are. We are constantly changing. The fixed mindset doesn't want to accept that. Once it accepts it, it has to face the challenges of uncertainty. Another surprising thing was that we might not always need confidence when we have a growth mindset. There is the tendency to link success to luck. I'm not saying that luck can't play a certain role in one's achieving something, but its role is minimal. Success is always the result of assiduous work. And if you have the growth mindset, you'll enjoy the process. The fixed mindset quickly finds the excuse. For example, I'm not lucky, or remember, it's not my fault, it's theirs. The growth mindset looks for solutions to tackle the problem. The issue is that the fixed mindset perceives the challenge as a threat that will expose one's vulnerability. And we know from Brené Brown's books that in our scarcity culture, vulnerability is something we shall be ashamed of. People with the growth mindset always look for ways to maintain their interest. It's not that they are gifted, it's that they stay curious and seek challenges. Carol Dweck points to the way educators can develop a fixed mindset in children. Moreover, if teachers preach and practice the fixed mindset, the children are likely to develop the fixed mindset too. This means that their achievement will be limited, as putting effort for them will be extremely disagreeable, even useless. They will study because they want to ace a test, but not because they want to learn something. Another interesting point Carol Dweck makes is that although talented people can do something with little or no training, it doesn't mean that others who don't have that talent can't learn to do it. This is true even about creativity, which is the result of hard work and dedication. We quite often tend to think that in order to boost one's motivation, we need to praise them. A praise can be indeed very helpful, yet we should be very careful as praising can either anchor people into their fixed mindset or help them grow. There is a difference between ability praise and effort praise. Think what happens if you are praised for the result or talent. What happens the next time you don't succeed? People with a fixed mindset will consider themselves a failure. And we know what happens next. They will lose faith in their ability. Yet, if the effort is praised, people can be more motivated to grow. Stereotyping can also foster a fixed mindset. Stereotyped people can end up believing what others think about them. For example, women aren't good at math and science. If people are in the growth mindset, they refuse to be defined by those stereotypes and don't let them disrupt their performance. They work harder, seek help, and try to catch up. They stay to realize their goal and come up with new strategies to get there. They understand that someone else's view on them doesn't define who they really are. They confront the challenges with confidence and ability intact. They remain in charge of their learning. When trying to identify what makes the character of a champion, Carol Dweck shows how a growth mindset helps build that character. My biggest takeaway probably was that success is not about winning. And if we come to think about it, it makes sense. The author gave examples of athletes fixated on their own winning, and when losing, they would lose their temper as well. They would start tantrums and find fault with everybody around them. This is because they have to face the consequences of having a fixed mindset. They think of themselves as nobodies. They have lost their somebodyness. So if one suffers from somebody nobody syndrome, they are already losing. It's this worrying about being a nobody that drains all the motivation and results in failing. The sportsman having a growth mindset in Carol Dweck's book all spoke of mental toughness. I linked these to emotional intelligence, one's ability to manage their emotions. I keep reading and I see the interconnection with so many notions like emotional intelligence, vulnerability, discipline, which have been covered by other researchers in their books, and they all seem to approach a person's well-being from different perspectives, but at the end they have the same message, and namely character can be learned, developed through consistent practice and self-discipline. So easy, and yet there are so many who keep sabotaging themselves. Why? According to Carol Dweck, because they have a fixed mindset. If you think that in the business world they understood the benefits of a growth mindset, you can't be further from the truth. There seems still to be this stubborn urge to look for natural talent. This only means that people are put under a lot of pressure, being afraid of making mistakes and, as a consequence, avoiding taking risks. They would never admit they are flawed in such a threatening psychological world. But who are those true leaders who lead their companies to greatness? First of all, they show what Adam Grant called confident humility, or as Carol Dweck put it, they maintain a healthy sense of confidence. They don't want to prove they are better than others, and they seek criticism and not a community of worshippers. They don't divide the world into superiors and inferiors. They look for ways of developing themselves and their teams. They use the company as an engine of everybody's growth. They know that it's not about them, but about the whole team. They won't ever put their ego before the welfare of their company. Their actions won't be promoted by the need for validation. They will use their brain power to learn, but not to intimidate. They will destroy hierarchies and select people for their mindset and not for their pedigree. They will contribute to others' growth and will practice gratitude. Growth mindset leaders won't have groupthink and won't ever suppress dissent. They can take criticism easily and look for ways to improve. They won't look for winning a negotiation. They will seek to get all parties to feel their needs have been met. If leaders get training and so much information is available, how come they still have a fixed mindset? They simply don't believe in personal change. It's a good idea to show them the plasticity of the human brain. What does a growth mindset environment look like? Presenting skills as learnable. Conveying that the organization values learning and perseverance, not just ready-made genius or talent. Giving feedback in a way that promotes learning and future success. Presenting managers as resources for learning. While organizations embody a certain mindset, the fixed mindset promotes a culture of genius, whereas the growth mindset organization encourages a culture of development. According to Carol Dweck, people who work in growth mindset organizations have far more trust in their company and a much greater sense of empowerment, ownership, and commitment. What about the mindset in love? We grow up with the erroneous romantic perception that once people commit to a relationship, they live happily ever after. Sometimes they assume that the course to their love was enough for the happiness to come. Yet it is the course of their love that counts. And as we have seen, everything we do requires effort and commitment. In the fixed mindset world, things are the way they were meant to be and nothing can be done about it. It is also in this world that people expect their partners to read their minds. And when they don't do it, they can easily put the blame on their partners. Luckily, there's also the growth mindset world, which can help relationships thrive. How, you may ask? By communicating, forgiving, accepting, supporting, and encouraging one another. In the growth mindset world, people understand that their partners aren't perfect, but they also realize that this doesn't mean they can't have a great relationship. Instead of blaming, judging the other, and being convinced that people can't change, they accept the flaws in themselves and their partners. They don't judge. They encourage the others to grow and believe they can change. They know that by choosing their partners, they choose their set of problems and put a lot of effort in their relationship. Carol Dweck also points to the issue of bullying. Bullies are the people who get an extra boost in their self-esteem when they bully others. They can feel better by making the others feel the worst. I'd like to emphasize that the victims can get away from the terror of bullying if they don't identify themselves with what bullies want them to believe about themselves. So they don't see bullying as a reflection of who they are. The chapter devoted to parents, teachers, and coaches was really insightful. It made me think that sometimes in our desire to do good to our kids, we actually may harm them. Although the messages we send are well intended, they can be interpreted in the wrong way. As a result, the kids can develop a fixed mindset. So let's say you are praising the kid's talent without realizing that this can turn them into a slave of praise. Similarly, in our desire to encourage the kid in the face of an eventual loss, you might say, I think you really deserved that prize, without assuming that the kid can interpret it that the competition was rigged or that it's not necessary for them to put some extra effort to really get the prize, for example. Another meta message the kid will pick up on is the way you talk about other people who fail. For example, when exclaiming, "Oh, what a loser," when referring to someone who has just failed, you'll send the message to the kid that they will also be a loser if they get into a similar situation. What is the result of all this? Kids develop a fixed mindset and are afraid of taking up challenges. What are some consequences of fixed mindset? Speed and perfection, including the erroneous belief that no effort is needed in doing a task. This puts the kid into a lot of pressure. When saying, for example, it's a piece of cake, it's so easy for you to do it, you may think that you are encouraging the kid, whereas they decode the following: oh my god, I'm a failure, I can't do it quickly, no use even trying. Similarly, when promoting the culture of perfectionism, which, by the way, doesn't exist, you let the child develop the idea that they are never good enough. This will result in a strong feeling of unlovability. Judgment and labeling. We've already mentioned that when judging, even others sends the wrong messages to the kids. So what should parents, teachers, and coaches do? Create an atmosphere of trust and not judgment. Make the learning environment a place of development. Praise the effort, not the talent. Provide constructive criticism. Stop shielding them from failures. Wake up. They are inevitable. It's due to them that development happens. Set high standards and show how to reach them. And finally, maintaining discipline while simultaneously making them feel nurtured. The last chapter of the book tells us how to be in charge of our mind. While reading it, I saw how the other books I read so far conveyed similar ideas. For example, we want to change? We change. Has the problem been solved? Remember Katie Milkman. It's maintaining the change that's most challenging. Carol Dweck says the same. The piece of advice to change again rang a bell. Make a detailed plan. Say exactly when, where, and how you're going to do something. However, there were some new insights. Let's admit first that we all have a fixed mindset. By the way, it served a good purpose in the past. For example, when a child develops a fixed mindset, its primary function is to protect them. However, if they aren't later on helped to change their beliefs, that is to develop a growth mindset, they will never actually learn. Some might even argue, why change the fixed mindset if I'm in a comfortable bubble? Bubbles have the property to burst, and that is going to really hurt. But let's assume you are in a concrete bubble. Do you know what this means? You are missing opportunities. A fixed mindset will avoid challenges, criticism, struggle, and setbacks because they are seen as life-threatening conditions and not as learning opportunities. Now, it doesn't mean that being a growth mindset will make you feel better about your failures. Failing hurts and makes one feel miserable regardless of the mindset type. However, a growth mindset will be able to see how they can turn that failure into an opportunity for growth. It is also crucial to understand that effort doesn't always stand for a growth mindset. Quite often fixed mindsetters put or are made to put a lot of effort without actually learning anything. I don't know, think about the kids whose parents make them take up a lot of extra classes. They can even have private classes only to be the best. Yet, they are not learning. They are memorizing to achieve what is expected from them to achieve. They don't learn in the process, and they definitely don't enjoy it. We have understood that having a fixed mindset prevents us from growing. We try to change it. We have got the tools, yet the biggest problem is still ahead of us. What shall we do to maintain that change? We already know that maintaining it is the most challenging part. What is to be done about it? First and foremost, we shall acknowledge our fixed mindset and embrace it. It appeared for a reason, and we shall be grateful for having offered us the shielding we needed at a certain point in our development. Yet being aware of its presence will help us determine its triggers and deal with them appropriately. I, for instance, immediately trace when I'm slipping into the fixed mindset and start talking to myself, emphasizing that failure hurts, but it's a process of learning. Just recently, I have had this unpleasant experience of seeing how imperfect something I did was. So perfectionism was my trigger here. I'm not a translator, I'm a language educator. But I was asked to translate at an event. I was extremely afraid. My knowledge of English is good, but I had to deal with some specialized vocabulary I knew I might not be familiar with, which, by the way, turned out to be true. I will forever remember the term milling machine. So I talked to myself and I told myself I would do the best I could, which I did. However, I was not blind to my imperfections. I tried to self-assess myself and I gave myself a 75% out of 100, which is not bad at all. Come on, I had no idea what a milling machine is. The people I translated for were very nice and they said I did a good job, which was very encouraging indeed, but I was not looking for their praise for my ability, but I appreciated that they praised my effort. I told about my experience to one of the organizers of the event about my self-assessment, and do you know what she told me? She said it in Russian. Маловато, which would mean not enough. So here was a person who had no idea what translating involves and had just shown me how she had used an app to communicate in German when she was in Germany, telling me I was not enough. That was very discomforting, yet I didn't let that get to me. I know it wasn't perfect, whereas her validation meant nothing to me. Instead, I looked at what growing opportunities I had during that experience. I was aware of the following triggers. Perfectionism instilled in me from my childhood and fear of being judged. Being aware of that helped me stop my fixed mindset and, as I've said, turn that experience into a learning opportunity. Another tip Carol Dweck gives is to give our fixed mindset persona a name. Guys, it really works. So whenever I'm triggered, usually it results in some emotional discomfort, I start talking to that persona. Naming it and addressing it really helps our brain detach from our fixed mindset and look for ways of benefiting from that experience. I gave it a very unusual name, Megambra. Don't ask why. And when I'm triggered, I tell it, okay, Megambra, let's take a deep breath and talk it over. By merely thinking of this name, I signal to my brain that I shall broaden my perspectives and not stick to some fixed patterns in my mind. So far, it has worked pretty well, particularly when I'm overwhelmed by some strong negative emotions, like fear, anger. So this leads us to the next step in our journey to maintaining change, and this is educating our fixed mindset persona. Make it take up challenges and stick to them. Help others on the way. And what's more important, keep setting goals for growth.